Hey, 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 happy Sunday. Dr. Joe from Atlanta. Welcome to Your Wellness for Life. Wellness is a state of being. And yesterday we talked about how you can't please everybody. And I gave you a homework assignment. So those of you who watched last night will come back to that. But anyway, last night we talked about how you can't please everybody. And there's this saying, you can please some of the people all the time and all the people some of the time, but you cannot please all the people all the time. Its origins actually goes back to the 13th century. There's a monk and poet. His name was John Lydgate of Bury. He lived in Suffolk, England. And he actually hit the original saying was, you can fool some of the people all the time and all the people some of the time, but you cannot fool all the people all the time. Abraham Lincoln actually adapted and adopted that and made it more famous by changing the word fool to please. Anyway, you can't please everyone, certainly not all the time. So tonight's topic, and I alluded to it last night, we're going to talk about polarized thinking or dichotomous thinking. The article that I'm basing this on, actually the title has How Black and White Thinking Hurts You and What You Can Do to Change It. So again, we're not talking about skin color. So this is not black and white. So I'm going to refrain from using black and white. I'm going to use polarized thinking. And it was written by Rebecca Joy Stanborough, and it was medically reviewed by Jennifer Littner, who is a licensed family therapist, marriage and family therapist. So here we go. All or nothing mindset. Most of us engage in polarized thinking from time to time. Of course, we don't all agree on everything. And, we can't please everybody. So we're going to have different thoughts. We have different backgrounds, different philosophies on how to raise children and how to worship and things like that. Again, happy Sunday. And I'm Dr. Joe from Atlanta. Welcome to Your Wellness for Life. And let's dig into this a little bit. So the American Psychological Association also calls dichotomous or polarized thinking is considered a cognitive distortion. And all or nothing mindset doesn't allow us to find the middle ground. And what's going on right now in the last couple of weeks and the last couple of months, we have become more and more polarized, and it's becoming more and more obvious. And it's going to be hard to move forward if we continue on this track. So it's going to be hard to sustain life at those extremes. So we better learn to start coming back to the middle, finding common ground, and start compromising. So, and it can affect significant, consistent, polarized thinking will affect your physical and mental health. I'm a physician. I see this in my office. It can sabotage your career, and it can disrupt your relationships. So we don't want any of that. So my title here is actually Never Say Never and Never Say Always. This is something that was drilled into me as a young physician. Never say never, never say always. There's always an exception to the rule. There's always that 3 to 5% of patients that will do something that's not quite what you expect. So there are actually 7 words that have been identified that if you use them a lot, may actually mean that you're becoming way too extreme. And always is one of them. Never is one of them. Impossible is another one. Disaster, furious, ruined, and perfect. So those are the 7 words that may alert you that your thoughts are becoming extreme. Always, never, impossible, disaster, furious, ruined, and perfect. So how does polarized thinking hurt you? It can harm your relationship. If we approach normal conflicts with dichotomous thinking, we'll probably draw the wrong conclusions about other people, and we'll miss opportunities to negotiate and compromise. Again, the point here is to try to get back into the middle. And how it may harm relationships, let me give you some examples. Um, Suddenly moving people from the quote unquote good person category to the bad person category. When you assume things, you know what happens when you assume things. Um, Quitting a job or firing people, you may be just making too quick decisions, breaking up a relationship, or avoiding genuine resolution of the issues. Dichotomous thinking often shifts between idealizing and devaluing others. And again, we want to try to get more into the middle and not live on the extremes. Another way that polarized thinking can hurt you, it can keep you from learning. In schools, we have a grading system, and it's all too easy to fall into a dichotomous thinking about your academic accomplishments. A growth mindset, which encourages students to recognize incremental progress toward mastery, may actually be better, and for them to see themselves moving closer to being able to do what they have set out to do. Another thing that can hurt you with dichotomous or polarized thinking is it can limit your career. In many collaborative work environments where roles shift, expand, and reform, having rigid limits can keep you and the organization from achieving goals. And final thing, it can disrupt healthy eating habits. Several studies have found a connection between eating disorders and dichotomous or polarized thinking. Um, Dichotomous thinking can cause people to look at certain foods as good or bad, look at their own bodies as either perfect or revolting, or they can eat and binge, purge, all or nothing cycles. And researchers have also found that dichotomous thinking can lead people to create rigid dietary restraints, which can make it hard to maintain a healthy relationship with food. And I know we've got lots of stress. We got the pandemic of 2020, and now we've got the continuation of it. It's going to be the vaccine of 2021. And a lot of people stress eating, and polarized thinking may actually exacerbate that. All right. So is polarized thinking a symptom of other conditions? Yes, there are some psychiatric conditions. I don't want to dwell on it too much, but let me just give you a few of them so that you have the total picture. Narcissism is a condition that causes an exaggerated sense of self-importance, a deep need for attention, and a profound lack of empathy for others. So that's a psychiatric condition that's associated with extreme polarized thinking. Another one is borderline personality disorder. Those people usually have problems controlling impulses, often experience black and white thinking, and may struggle with interpersonal relationships. Another one is obsessive compulsive disorder, or OCD. Those people usually think in an all or none pattern because the ability to put something into a firm category may give them a sense of control over their circumstances. And this thinking makes it possible for them to maintain a rigid perfectionism, and that can make it harder to get help. And finally, it can lead to anxiety and depression. And that's pretty much self-explanatory. So what's causing this dichotomous, and this is actually being seen worldwide. And if you watch my Facebook Live from yesterday, the theme was you can't please everybody all the time. I gave you a homework assignment, and I was asked to watch a Netflix documentary called The Social Dilemma. And I watched it yesterday, and the premise there is that social media is fueling the world's polarization. And this is how the thought goes. You on that phone doing social media, and now we have younger and younger generations, younger kids that are being exposed to social media and that phone. And according to the documentary, the people that are featured in there are former people in Google and YouTube, and all the big players. And they initially didn't set out for things to end up where they are. But just to kind of give you the conclusion in there, if you think as the user of your phone, if you think you are the consumer, you're actually not. If you think you're paying for it, you're not. It's actually advertising that's paying for the social media. And so what does that make us, the users of it? It makes us the product. We're the product, and they're selling us. We're the product, and they're selling us for advertising dollars. And it's gotten so addictive now that it's caused this polarization in the world. So that's a big theory now, and you'll probably see and you'll probably hear more about that in the upcoming weeks and months, probably. In addition, some people think there may be some kind of a genetic predisposition to polarized thinking and those psychiatric disorders that I mentioned. There really isn't enough research to say conclusively that polarized thinking is inherited, but it has been linked to childhood or adult trauma. And researchers think that when we experience trauma, we may develop polarized thinking patterns as a coping strategy or to try to protect ourselves from future harm. All right, so what can we do short of seeing a psychotherapist or mental health professional, someone who's trained in cognitive behavioral therapy? What could we do if we notice that we are starting to become more and more polarized ourselves? Okay, so I've got 4 things according to this article. And the first one is try to separate what you do from who you are. And the best example would be people in the military. I spent 12 and a half years in the military, active duty physician. And over 12 and a half years, we went through several different administrations. And the president is the commander in chief. And whether you are in that party or whether you believe in that person's political beliefs in the military, that person's commander in chief. You have to be professional, and you have to put your personal thoughts aside, and so you have to separate what you do from who you are. So that's a good example. Number 2, try listing options. And as an exercise, you can either write down or think about options. So if you think that there are just 2 options, think again, write down or think about other options, and that might give you some way out of this polarized thinking. Number 3, practice reality reminders. Say or write down small factual statements like, there are several ways I can solve this problem, or both of us may be partially right. This comes to compromise. Again, if we're living on extremes, we can't continue on this path. We need to meet in the middle. We need to compromise. And finally, find out what other people think. You know what happens when you assume things? You make an ass out of you and you and me. So calmly ask clarifying questions. Think about it when you have kids and you have a rebellious teenager. Would a course of action of not having some dialogue with that child be a good course of action, or would it be better to have a conversation, have a discussion, dialogue? That's how we solve most of our problems, whether it's at the family level or it's a relationship level, community problems, in our country or even between countries. Compromise is the answer to everything. Dialogue, having a discussion about it. If you just assume things are just not going to go well. So I hope this is helpful. We're talking about never saying never and never say always. The world is becoming more and more polarized, more and more dichotomous. Our smartphones and the social media may be fueling that. It's a phenomenon that's been noticed all over the world now. And if you watch any of the news, you can see how this is just unfolding itself. So happy Sunday. I'm Dr. Joe from Atlanta, To Your Wellness for Life. And this topic was just perfect for what we're going to have tomorrow. We're going to be celebrating Martin Luther King Day. And what did Martin Luther King, Dr. King, say? We need to do things. You want change? You need to do it peacefully. So have a great MLK Day tomorrow, and I'll see you tomorrow on Monday. God bless. Dr. Joe from Atlanta. See you later.